Port Macquarie's Jason McGlashan made the most of the gusty northwesterly winds on the lake today to hang on to his lead in the state title.
Jason, he's doing quite well, I think. He's defending his title. He should do quite well in this too. This sort of breeze suits him.
The course between Toronto and Valentine proved challenging for the 35 competitors who travelled from the mid-north coast, Wollongong and Canberra to take part. The titles were held in 3 divisions based on sail size.
They have to really pump hard to get a bit more speed to try and beat the fellow who's behind them or beside them, you know. They do have to work very hard. It's a very physical sport.
Meantime, in cricket, a solid Newcastle side has taken on Illawarra in a 2-day match in Wollongong. The Fig Tree Oval was in top shape for the clash. Yesterday, Illawarra scored 245. In response, Newcastle got off to a shaky start today, scoring 3 for 11 after just 20 minutes. But a partnership between Glenn Grimmond in the dark green helmet and Murray Christie in the blue got things back on track. Newcastle finished the day winners at 7 for 246. And in bowls, the City versus Country tournament has been held at the Warilla Club near Wollongong. The country squad included several of Newcastle and the Central Coast's best bowlers, including Sam Laguza from Charlestown, Dennis Dalton from Beresfield, Paul Cousins from Maitland City and Phil Flippence from the Entrance. The City team won 2 tests to 1. Paul Lobb, NBN News. Around the turn of last century, the main transport link between Toronto and the main northern line at Fassifern was a steam tram with a garden shed attached, known as the Coffee Pot.
It filled the purpose of taking passengers between Toronto and Fassifern and goods. A lot of fish was brought out into Toronto and then taken into Newcastle from the Coffee Pot, unloaded at Fassifern, then on into Newcastle from there.
Thanks to a $57,000 grant from the federal government handed over today by member for Charlton, Kelly Hoare, the Coffee Pot is to run again.
All aboard!
The local Tramway Museum Society will build a replica twice the size of this one and run it as a tourist attraction, and it's guaranteed to be a more comfortable ride than the original.
At times, the Coffee Pot couldn't manage the grades, so these gentlemen would have to get out and push while the ladies sat inside in their finery.
All going according to plan, the Coffee Pot should be running along these lines by the end of 2001, and locals feel it'll be a valuable attraction for Lake Macquarie.
This will do a number of things. It'll actually use the railway line, it'll get people from Fassifern to Toronto, and of course increase the tourism and the tourist dollar in Toronto and Lake Macquarie.
Paul Lobb, NBN News. Staff picked up more than $1,000 worth of food from Mayfield Woolworths thanks to an anonymous donation. The Samaritans will distribute hampers, money and toys to more than 4,000 local people this Christmas. They're hoping for $100,000 in donations before then to make ends meet.
We really try to ensure that all the families we know receive a Christmas hamper at Christmas, and especially the children, that no one misses out. So we do try to go the extra mile at Christmas, and we hope that members of the community will help us to achieve our goal.
Meantime, $150,000 in donations from Newcastle car dealers will go towards the establishment of a new waiting facility for families at the John Hunter Hospital. The room will offer a respite area for parents of young patients enduring long days of treatment at the hospital.
At this stage, the course looks like it suits me, so yeah, relatively confident.
Take 10 of the world's best harness racing drivers, put them in charge of horses they've never seen, race them over 20 races on 5 of Australia's best tracks, and at the end of it all, the new world champion will be decided. That's the format for the World Championship, and Canadian Sylvain Filion has had 3 wins so far to take the lead. Moonee Valley was first, Ballarat followed.
I was lucky enough to draw some good horses and kind of had some racing luck, so that helped a lot.
South Australia's Lance Justice is running second in the title race after wins at Moonee Valley and Harold Park.
The horses I've been driving have been going all right. I've had 2 good days, 1 not so good day, but as long as I get average horses from now on in, I think I'm a big chance.
Drivers from Germany, Italy, the US, France, Sweden, Great Britain, Finland and New Zealand were introduced with the 2 title leaders in Newcastle today. Ready for 4 more racing heats tomorrow at Broadmeadow.
The competition is real tight, you know, anybody's still got a chance to win it.
David McElwain, NBN News.
Lakeland's housing estate was established 6 years ago, and since then has received more residents than originally catered for. But some locals have grown fond of the feathered inhabitants.
They don't hurt anybody, they don't interfere with anyone, and I get a lot of pleasure from them, I really do.
However, the ducks don't appeal to everyone, and may have to make their home elsewhere. According to the Lakelands Management Committee, the ducks are denuding the surrounding vegetation and polluting the waters which flow into Lake Macquarie. A decision hasn't been reached yet on whether and how to move the ducks on. But if these residents get their way, the ducks will stay and continue to be a focal point of the estate.
It saved my sanity at times because I had a few illnesses after I came here. And if watching the ducks, I'd gone crazy. I really would have.
Adam Harper, NBN News.
It's goals like this scored in Sunday's shock loss to the Melbourne Knights, which have coach Lee Sterry seeing red.
Some of the things that are happening defensively to us at the moment just isn't right. So, and it's not just the defenders. There's other people in midfield that are daydreaming at times and letting people run past them, and it's just not going to be accepted, that's for sure.
The Breakers have conceded 12 goals in 7 matches for 3 draws, 3 losses and a win. It's a statistic which has weighed heavily on the minds of players at training this week.
We're digging ourselves a deep hole, and we don't want to look at, like last year we lost 5 on the trot, and we look back at that and that cost us a semi-final berth. So, you know, we've now lost 3 on the trot. We've got to arrest the tide.
The Breakers' saving grace this season has been their solid form on home turf, and they'll be hoping to repeat that on Friday night against the Adelaide Force. It's been a similar story this season for Adelaide, sitting in equal position with Newcastle despite boasting names like Tobin, Murray and Vidmar. Lee Sterry has made only one change to his side. Vasco Tripcheski has been benched in favour of Peter Junknowitz. Friday night's game kicks off at 7:30 at Breakers Stadium. Blake Doyle, NBN News.
Honest and sincere fellow, but I believe I can do the job better, and I think that's what Newcastle needs. We need some strong leadership, and it hasn't been there in the form that I believe it should be.
3 generations of his family.
Newcastle come away with Moody.
20-metre line, it might help in those instances.
What a chance then for the Knights with Andy suffered a fractured hand very early in the season, round 3 in fact. Shields hasn't missed a game though, Matthew Johns. All here at Marathon Stadium, and Matthews steps off the left. Oh! First game in the top grade this year, Clinton O'Brien. The line, Newcastle with this big breeze behind them. Peden, a few metres off as well. And now with Baderis. Short of the...
After 50 fights and 46 wins, Les Darcy died in 1917 in the US at just 21 years of age, having beaten every fighter he ever fought. A world middleweight title holder, he stepped up to beat the big men for an Australian heavyweight title. He also won all of his last 22 fights. Tanya Bartlett is beginning her career as a sculptor, and now she's received a $63,000 commission to immortalise the Maitland marvel in East Maitland's King Edward Park.
For me, it's just such an honour to be able to bring him back to life, and I'm going to work very hard and try and do exactly that.
Tanya's work with Tony Lockett, Laurie Daly and the Don helped her get the job, but now she needs some help in the form of a model.
Someone who fits the build of Les Darcy. He's medium solid build and about 5'7", and well, he can certainly have a face of an angel like Les.
The Long Lives Film Festival is a collection of 10 works representing the latter stages of life.
This looks like a job for handyman.
It's a proper film festival. It's a totally different protocol to going to the cinema normally, where the audience is encouraged to clap or boo or walk out if they don't like the stuff. You know, it's more like the old Globe Theatre.
It's all part of this year's UN Year of the Older Person. The 10 films on offer run the gamut of movie making, from animation to drama, documentary and compilation pieces. More than just your average cinema-going experience, the Long Lives Festival is designed to empower its ageing audience. The festival concludes tonight with a screening at Birmingham Gardens Regal Cinema.
Things are starting to come together at Clyde Engineering at Cardiff. 30 staff have already been employed and are hard at work helping to build the 20 Millennium trains.
We're in the very early stages of gearing up. We have some 30 people on site currently. We've commenced some small amount of production work, but we are, like I say, in the very infancy of that process.
And it seems local businesses will share in the profits of the $220 million contract. Contracts have already been awarded to fiberglass companies and aluminium manufacturers. Varley Engineering was today awarded a $1 million contract to build the floors of the trains.
Over the entire contract, we're talking about some $65 million being injected into the local economy.
And it won't be long until the plant is at full production.
We'll be ramping up progressively over the next 9 months, and probably by the third quarter of next year we'll be at full capacity, and that will be about 170 people on site.
The first train will roll out of the factory in January 2001. Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
Tony McDaniel coached the Yuba 49ers in California for 13 years. Now he's the coaching director with Maitland Basketball and spent today working with 80 youngsters as part of a School Sports 2000 clinic. He says more sports should be taught in school time.
In the States, most of our sports do come out of the schools, and here it comes out of the associations and different clubs, and I think it's neat that the schools are giving the kids the opportunity, because it's something that should be introduced to them within the schools.
The School Sports 2000 Foundation is funded by NRMA, dairy farmers and fresh fruit and veg, giving youngsters the skills to succeed.
Today's emphasis is just to have fun with basketball. It's not to see who's going to be the most talented group, but just to have fun. So we're trying to promote the sport throughout New South Wales as well as Australia. And we seem to be accomplishing that today.
Just some skills about basketball and been doing some dribbling skills.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Empty schoolyards and beaches crowded with teenagers, a sure sign of industrial strife in our schools. Today it was Catholic school teachers joining in their state counterparts, 150 turning out for a stop work meeting at Cardiff Workers Club.
Catholic teachers want their employer to recognise the worth and the work that they do in Catholic schools.
Catholic school teachers want an interim 4.5% salary increase in line with a claim by the state's public school teachers. The Catholic Education Office says it's waiting for the outcome of the state teachers' campaign before awarding any increase.
That it just would be a gesture of goodwill if the Catholic employers could say, yes, we do really value our teachers and we will give that interim settlement.
Teachers are also asking for greater regulation of work hours and protection of their award. They'll decide next Friday whether to continue their industrial campaign. Blake Doyle, NBN News. Last night, thieves tore off a window security grill at the rear of the building and stole $20,000 in SES equipment.
We go out and we do road rescue and we do all sorts of things for other people. For someone to come and do this to us, it leaves a bad taste in your mouth, a very bad taste.
The haul includes 3 chainsaws, a generator, handheld radios, even boots and gloves. Cooranbong SES responds to emergencies across the entire West Lakes region. The theft has temporarily crippled the service.
They've taken our handheld radios, and usually on the event of road accidents, we've got to communicate with each other over a period of distance, such as blocking traffic.
Meanwhile, Rural Fire Service Commissioner Phil Koperberg, on a tour of the Hunter Valley, has predicted inland New South Wales is facing its worst bushfire season in years. With 70,000 rural firefighters and more fire units on the road, the service is ready for a busy bushfire season.
We're as prepared as anyone, and we're better prepared than we were this time last year.
Blake Doyle, NBN News.
"27-year-old Aaron Muir was first into the stand. He told the court that he came under the influence of 40-year-old Gary Broderick at Capral Aluminium, where they both worked, and joined him using recreational drugs on the Newcastle nightclub scene. Under questioning from the Crown, he said Broderick organised the attempt on John Stewart's life as he lay asleep with his wife at Lochinvar in December 1997. That was the plan, that his neck was to be broken. Yes. You only do that if you want to kill someone. Yes. And your job was to render Mrs. Stewart unable to stop the murder being committed. Yes. When Aaron Muir told the court who put the cable tie around Susan Stewart's neck so tightly that her fingers became stuck as she tried to protect her throat, Tony Polverino burst into tears and buried his head in his hands. But there was worse evidence to come. As Mrs. Stewart struggled violently, the horrible plan went wrong. Tony Polverino finally went to help Broderick. Mr. Stewart was being held down, but his neck was not broken. Polverino says he heard Broderick say, "Let's do it and get out of here." Sitting in the witness box and overcome by emotion, Polverino admitted that he then stabbed Mr. Stewart and slashed his neck. Next, a much calmer Gary Broderick took the stand. He admitted organising the hit during a dozen or so meetings with the contractor and his two helpers. He told the Crown prosecutor that the plan was to kill Mr. Stewart to make it look like a robbery gone wrong. When asked, "Were you prepared to do something like this without being desperate for $10,000, he answered, "Yes." The sentencing will continue tomorrow.
In rugby league this week, there's been a few surprises. Ray Hadley and the continuous call team from 2UE were chopped by the NRL, with the exclusive rights to call the matches given to 2GB. The 2UE has vowed to fight the decision, so how unusual the fact that there's a chance that rugby league will go to the courts again. The NRL has also put forward a proposal to introduce a draft system next year. It will not affect players already in the league, but the new recruits. The NRL claims it will make the competition more even and eliminate cases of players being signed by one club at a very young age. A draft has been suggested before, and this time I think there's more of a chance of it going through, but some players might argue it's a restriction of trade. The NRL also has a new CEO in David Moffat, who's jumped straight into the hot seat, tackling issues from the South Sydney legal battle to the 2UE controversy. To other football, and how about the Joeys? The Australian under-17 soccer team has made the final of the World Championships and will take on big shots Brazil tomorrow. The history-making event has made everyone stand up and take a look at the talent, guts and determination of Australian soccer, and its future is looking very bright. And in cricket, Steve Waugh has paid Adam Gilchrist the ultimate compliment after that unbelievable partnership with Justin Langer in the Test win over Pakistan, by saying the keeper would make and possibly be the next Australian captain. Well, that's it for me. I'll see you next week.
The bronzed Aussie lifesaver is synonymous with summer and saving lives. The distinctive red and yellow outfits worn by volunteers along the coast.
The red and yellow is recognised as the surf life-saving movement. If you're in trouble, if you require assistance, that's the person that can come to you.
But 80% of council beach inspectors or lifeguards along the east coast don't wear the red and yellow, instead opting for other colours like blue and white. The difference in uniform is designed to illustrate the different responsibilities.
Contract lifeguards and volunteers are empowered for the water safety function and do a great job at it. They can rescue people in the water, but the pure law enforcement activities only council employed lifeguards can do.
But the volunteers say they perform similar duties, and all lifeguards should wear the red and yellow.
They have the same responsibility to protect the people that go in the water, make sure the same number come out walking.
The decision whether to change beach inspectors' uniforms will be made by individual councils. In the meantime, inspectors are more concerned about the water than their clothes.
We're coming up to January where we know over 20 people will drown in the surf, and I think we should be concentrating more important issues.
Vanessa Spark, NBN News.
The school installed deadbolt in the computer room last night. Despite that, only hours later, thieves smashed their way in, stealing 8 computers before moving on to the staff room, pouring litres of glue over the microwave, phones, carpet and equipment. Cleaners came across the sticky mess and missing equipment early this morning and called police.
And it's one of those disconcerting things for staff to arrive and find that they're unable to use classrooms and their teaching materials have been interfered with.
Mr Campbell says it's an expensive loss for the school, not just the stolen computers, but also the thousands of dollars worth of senseless damage.
Given the replacement cost of computers and damage to carpet and equipment and loss of teaching materials and that sort of thing, it's going to get very close to $20,000.
The Department of Education has installed security alarms in high-risk schools, but despite numerous break-ins in the locality, it hasn't placed the Broadmeadow School in that category, leaving it vulnerable to attack. Meanwhile, the architecture building at Newcastle University was also targeted, almost an entire computer lab stolen after thieves broke in through a window. They made off with 11 computers worth about $25,000. Security guards checked the building at 3 a.m, but by the time the cleaners arrived early this morning, the computers had disappeared. Police are investigating to see if the two incidents are linked. The university is now planning to install high-tech digital cameras in computer rooms across the campus. Amanda Bolger, NBN News.
Having just competed in the national titles in Sydney last weekend, Cleo Hughes and Ian and Jessica Fletcher are hard at practice again, this time for the world titles next year. And it won't all be learned manoeuvres. The title requires thinking on your feet, as well as some hefty padding. The 9-day World Championship will be held in June next year in the Olympic City. And an international match of another kind got underway last night, a touring Korean women's basketball team facing Newcastle. The Korean side, Samsung, is undefeated so far in their tour, having defeated Newcastle 93-58. It's the first time the two sides have met, and it's hoped the Korean team will return next year in preparation for their season, which commences in January. And in cricket, Newcastle will play host to the Women's National Cricket League this weekend, with Queensland taking on the number 1 team, New South Wales. Returning to Newcastle to captain the New South Wales side is Australian captain Belinda Clark.
We're just trying to be bowling line and length and fielding well, and hopefully that'll be enough to contain them to a target that we can chase.
Adam Harper, NBN News.
To qualify for the championship, your bike has to be built before 1975. There's plenty of interest in the classic machines, riders travelling from throughout Australia to take part in the event in divisions ranging from under 16s to over 70s. And it seems the older bikes are just as fast as their modern equivalents.
Well, actually, there's not much difference in the speed because they're all the same capacity, 125, 250, 500s. There's not a lot of speed. It's probably the difference in speed is in the rider's wrist.
Meantime, racing on 4 wheels is no guarantee you'll stay upright, as speed car driver Les Porter discovered at the Newcastle Speedway last night. Drivers had similar troubles in the Formula 500s. There'll also be some paint and panel work underway after last night's street stock feature. Paul Lobb, NBN News.